Most people believe survival is about having dozens of different foods stored inside giant shelves packed with expensive emergency supplies. But the uncomfortable truth is that if a real crisis lasted longer than expected, most of those foods would fail far faster than people realize. Because survival is not about variety, luxury, or internet trends. It is about calories, nutrition, shelf life, and the ability to keep your body functioning when everything around you becomes unstable, and that is exactly why today we are exposing the only 3 foods that many preparedness experts quietly agree matter more than almost everything else combined. Because when inflation rises, supply chains slow down, natural disasters interrupt deliveries, or panic buying empties grocery stores within hours, people suddenly discover that convenience foods and trendy snacks cannot sustain human survival for long periods. And before we continue, I want you to subscribe right now and comment below with the one food you believe you could survive on the longest, because by the end of this video, your answer may completely change. And the first survival food that continues appearing in serious preparedness discussions around the world is plain white rice. Because despite looking simple and ordinary, white rice solves one of the biggest survival problems humanity has ever faced, which is reliable long-term calories. And calories matter because without enough energy, the human body becomes weaker, slower, mentally exhausted, and unable to function properly under stress, which means survival becomes dramatically harder once energy levels collapse. But white rice has supported entire civilizations for generations because it stores incredibly well when kept dry and protected from moisture, often lasting many years while still remaining usable, and that makes it one of the most dependable foods any person can keep inside their home during uncertain times. Because unlike fresh foods that spoil quickly or expensive emergency kits that many people never rotate properly, rice remains affordable, practical, and easy to store in large quantities without destroying your budget. And another reason rice matters is because survival situations are rarely comfortable, which means people need foods that can stretch into multiple meals while still keeping hunger under control. And rice does exactly that because even small portions expand during cooking and provide enough energy to help people stay active longer, especially when paired with other nutrient-rich foods. And what makes rice even more important is flexibility, because during emergencies, people cannot afford to depend on complicated meal systems or fragile supply chains. But rice works with almost anything, including beans, canned proteins, vegetables, spices, or even just water, and salt if options become limited, which is why millions of families worldwide still rely on it daily, even outside emergency situations. And there is another important reason survival experts continue recommending white rice instead of brown rice, because although brown rice may seem healthier, its natural oils reduce storage life significantly, while white rice remains far more stable for long-term preparation, and stability becomes everything once access to fresh food becomes uncertain. Because the harsh reality is that most people only prepare for comfort instead of true survival. Filling pantries with foods that expire quickly require refrigeration or provide very little nutritional value once conditions become difficult. But rice quietly avoids most of those problems while remaining one of the cheapest calorie sources available almost anywhere in the world. And that combination of affordability, long shelf life, simplicity, and dependable energy explains why so many experienced preppers prioritize it above countless trendy survival products marketed online every single year. Because when fear disappears and reality begins, the foods that matter most are usually the simplest ones people overlook from the beginning. And once you understand how quickly supply chains can break during major emergencies, you begin realizing that survival is not about having everything. It is about having the right essentials before everyone else suddenly rushes to find them too. But surviving on calories alone is not enough, because one of the biggest mistakes people make during emergencies is assuming that simply feeling full means their body is getting what it actually needs, when in reality many foods that seem satisfying provide very little nutritional support once stress, physical exhaustion, and uncertainty begin affecting the human body over long periods of time. And that is exactly why the second survival food on this list becomes so important, because beans are not just cheap pantry items sitting quietly on grocery store shelves. They're one of the most powerful long-term survival foods available anywhere in the world, especially when combined with rice, because together they create a nutritional balance that has supported entire populations through wars, economic collapses, natural disasters, and food shortages for generations. And before we continue, I want to take a second and hit the like button, because videos like this help people prepare smarter instead of panicking later when supplies disappear faster than expected. And the reason beans matter so much is because survival is not only about energy, it is also about maintaining strength, muscle function, mental focus, and immune health during difficult conditions. And beans provide something many emergency foods completely fail to deliver, which is reliable plant-based protein combined with fiber, minerals, and slow-burning carbohydrates that help keep the body functioning more steadily over time. Because unlike processed snacks loaded with sugar and unhealthy oils that create short bursts of energy followed by crashes, beans digest more slowly and help people stay full longer, which becomes extremely important when food supplies must be stretched carefully over days or even weeks. And another major reason beans continue appearing in serious preparedness discussions is affordability, because many people assume emergency preparation requires massive amounts of money, expensive freeze-dried meals, or military-style food kits. But dried beans prove that survival preparation can still remain practical for ordinary families without destroying their finances, since even large quantities can often be purchased at relatively low cost while still delivering thousands of servings worth of nutrition over time. And storage life matters too, because properly stored dried beans can last for years while maintaining much of their usefulness, making them one of the most dependable pantry staples during uncertain situations. And there is also a psychological side to survival that many people underestimate, because hunger affects emotions, decision-making, patience, and mental stability far more than most realize. But foods like beans help reduce constant hunger due to their high fiber and protein content, allowing meals to feel more satisfying even when portions remain limited. And that emotional stability becomes critical during stressful situations, because survival is not just physical, it is deeply mental as well. And what makes beans even more valuable is versatility, because they can work in countless simple meals without requiring complicated preparation systems, expensive ingredients, or fragile refrigeration. And when paired with rice, they create one of the most efficient survival combinations in the world, because rice provides dependable calories, while beans provide protein and nutritional support, creating a balanced foundation capable of sustaining human life far more effectively than many trendy emergency products marketed online through fear and advertising. And this is why experienced preppers often focus less on flashy survival gear and more on practical foods that have already proven themselves throughout human history. Because when real hardship arrives, the foods that matter most are usually the ones capable of feeding families consistently rather than impressing people on social media. And another overlooked advantage is accessibility, because beans are available in most grocery stores around the world, meaning people do not need special memberships, expensive subscriptions, or complicated supply chains to begin preparing responsibly. And that matters because preparation should be realistic instead of overwhelming, especially during times when rising prices already make everyday life harder for millions of households. And once you truly understand why simple foods like rice and beans have remained survival staples across multiple generations and cultures, you begin realizing that modern survival marketing often distracts people from the most important lesson of all, which is that long-term preparedness depends more on reliability and nutrition than on expensive products designed to create fear instead of real security. Now here's the third food that surprises many people the most, because unlike rice and beans, this one provides something extremely difficult to replace during long-term emergencies, which is concentrated animal protein, healthy fats, essential nutrients, and long shelf stability without depending on refrigeration. And that food is canned sardines, because while many people ignore them inside grocery stores or think of them as outdated survival food, sardines quietly solve several major survival problems at the same time, and that becomes critically important once normal food systems become unstable. Because the harsh truth is that the human body cannot function properly for long periods on carbohydrates alone, no matter how many calories exist, since protein and healthy fats play a major role in maintaining energy, muscle strength, brain function, hormones, and overall physical endurance during stressful situations. And before we continue, I want you to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the information in this video could genuinely help someone prepare more responsibly before shortages or emergencies happen unexpectedly. And one of the biggest advantages canned sardines provide is shelf stability, because unlike fresh meat, dairy products, or frozen foods that spoil quickly during power outages or supply disruptions, Sardines can remain usable for years while requiring almost no preparation, no freezer, and no expensive storage systems, making them one of the most practical survival proteins available almost anywhere in the world today. And another reason sardines matter so much is nutrient density, because even small cans contain protein, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and other important nutrients the body needs during physically and mentally demanding conditions. And that matters because nutritional deficiencies often appear much faster during emergencies than most people realize, especially when diets become repetitive or heavily dependent on processed foods. But sardines help balance that problem by providing concentrated nutrition inside compact servings. They're easy to store and transport, and unlike many heavily processed canned foods filled with sugar, preservatives, or empty calories, sardines deliver real nutritional value capable of supporting the body more effectively over longer periods of time. And there's another important reason experienced preparedness communities continue recommending canned fish, which is efficiency, because survival food must provide maximum nutrition while using minimal storage space. And sardines accomplish that extremely well, since even a small shelf can hold enough protein to support meals for weeks when combined with rice and beans, creating a practical survival system that remains affordable for ordinary households instead of only wealthy people buying expensive emergency kits online. And this is where many survival myths begin falling apart, because the Internet often promotes flashy products, giant survival gadgets, or unrealistic bunker-style preparation, while ignoring the simple foods that have historically kept humans alive during genuine hardship. But throughout history, populations survived difficult periods using practical shelf-stable foods that deliver dependable calories, protein, and nutrients without depending on modern convenience systems. And rice, beans, and sardines together create exactly that kind of realistic foundation, because rice provides energy, beans provide fiber and protein, and sardines provide healthy fats and nutrient-rich animal nutrition, forming one of the most balanced and dependable emergency food combinations people can realistically build without spending enormous amounts of money. And another overlooked advantage is rotation, because these foods are already consumed daily by millions of people worldwide, meaning families can actually eat and replace them regularly instead of storing unfamiliar survival products that eventually expire and used. And that creates smarter long-term preparation, because good preparedness is not about fear or panic. It is about building calm, sustainable habits before problems begin. And the reality is that no one can predict exactly when shortages, economic instability, or unexpected emergencies may happen. But history repeatedly shows that supply systems can become fragile much faster than people expect once pressure begins spreading through entire populations, which is why preparation should never be treated like paranoia, but rather as practical responsibility for yourself and your family. And if you made it this far, comment the word prepare below. So I know you are thinking ahead instead of waiting until shelves are empty. And remember this carefully: when uncertainty arrives, the people who stay calm are usually the ones who prepare before everyone else finally realizes how quickly normal life can change.